Okay. All your presentation were very good and showed all the different context between these centuries. So today we will talk about the Middle Ages, which is a very long time, a lot of centuries, with a focus on Europe. We'll talk about early Christian architecture, Byzantine, Islamic, Romanesque, and Gothic. The historical context is the video I told you before. But just to show you guys where we are at in the history, the medieval era spans roughly from 500 to 1500 after Christ, bridging the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Renaissance. Historians divide it into three periods: the early Middle Ages, 500 to 1000, then the High Middle Ages, 1000, 1300, and then the Late Middle Ages, 1300, 1500. We can say that it was a time of major transformation across Europe, and it marked the rise of kingdoms and the influence by the church. Remember the church and the significant cultural shift. Um, this is just a little bit of history. I said that it began with the fall of the Roman Empire. So we're talking about the Western Roman Empire in 476, when Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman emperor, was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacre, signaling the collapse of the Roman rule in the West. This created a power vacuum, leading to a political fragmentation and the rise of barbarian kingdoms. Roads fell into despair, urban centers declined, and literacy decreased in many areas. So we can imagine the Western world divided into big four zones. We'll see it why later. So we can start now with the early Christian. As we can see here, it started from the 3rd century and it became a very important movement. I chose for this particular presentation for our lecture for today that I will focus on for each architectural style. I will focus on one major country. So for the early Christian, I focus on in the Italian context. So after Christianity was legalized by Emperor Constantine in 313 in the Edict of Milan, the region transitioned from private houses to churches and then to public architecture. Remember the basilica we talked about last time in the video I sent you? The basilica became the standard church form, not for pagan temples, but for Roman civic buildings that were repurposed for Christian worship. Around 1000 Christian pilgrimages were growing in importance as Europe became a religious territory. Pilgrims journeyed to sacred places and sites like Rome, Jerusalem, and Santiago de Compostela in Spain, where it's believed to house the remains of St. John the Apostle. So the pilgrimages were an act of faith and penance, often taking months. The movement spurred the development of Romanesque pilgrimages churches, which we'll see later. Now, I will talk about these three major, most important churches. Let's start with the first one, the Old St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which in Italian we say San Pietro. It began around 500 under Constantine and sets the standards for early Christian church. Designed with a longitudinal basilica plan, a large nave, and an apse. A century later, Santa Sabina in 400 preserved this form with its simple brick exterior and elegant interior, columns, arches, and wooden roof. Farther east, so we're talking to the Dura Europos Church in Syria, built before 250, is the earliest known Christian house church. Thus, architecture is simple. It includes a painted baptistery reflecting the early use of art in Christian ritual and teaching. Together, all these three sites show Christianity evolution from private worship in homes to grand public basilicas. Early Christian architecture laid the ideological and structural foundation to medieval churches. We can see here the very first easy structure of Christian architecture that was emerging in the 4th century after the legalization of Christianity. The typical church plan was longitudinal, modeled on the Roman basilica, with a central nave. You can see here, the nave is the central one, flanked by islands and terminating in a semicircular apse. All the churches, I can say to you guys that basically all the churches here in Italy are of this structure. Whenever you go, wherever you go, you can find of all the different centuries churches. As you know, the Pope stays in the Italy peninsula. It's not quite Italy because it has its own state, but we can call it Italy. And Italy is Christian, Catholics. And you can find churches in every single village you go. I live in a village of 50, 50 villagers, and there is two churches. And almost every church has this structure. So it's very simple. There is a basic central nave, two islets. Sorry, guys. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but the smaller naves on lateral naves that conclude on an apse, a semicircular apse. And the first Christian architecture had a gable roof. These structures were designed to accommodate large congregations and liturgical processions, making them more practical than compact. Architecturally, they featured a wooden roof trusses, we can see here in the second image, rather than vaults or domes, which were not yet common in the West. These allowed for large open interior spaces, thought the flat timber roof were structurally simpler and more vulnerable to fire. That's why a lot of churches were collapsed in the fires. The exterior is usually plain, often bricks or minimal ornamentation. Meanwhile, the interiors, as we can see here in the two bottom images, were richly decorated to convey spiritual meaning. So the architecture in this case leaned heavily on symbolism, and Christ was often portrayed as the good shepherd. Everything has a meaning. Is a symbol. Very good. So symbols, when you think of Christian symbols, you have to think about the fish, the wine, the anchor, and the lamb. Now let's proceed. The Byzantine one. We can see here, with the founding of Constantinople in 530 by Constantine, a distinct Eastern Roman Byzantine tradition emerged. As you can see, the central geographical pole shifted from Rome to Constantinople. Today is in Turkey. And this meant that there was a blending of Roman engineering with Eastern, Middle East, Asia mysticism. Art and architecture served imperial and theological purposes, stressing divine light and transcendence. Um, if you have to remember something about the Byzantine art and design and architecture, you have to remember light and transcendence. Byzantine architecture influenced Eastern Orthodox regions, as we can see in the map, the Balkanic area, and served as the stylistic bridge between Rome and the Islamic world. Domes and mosaic later appeared in the Islamic and Orthodox art. We'll see it later. In this image, you can see Santa Sofia, which is the most important church in the Byzantine world. And I use this image because it shows the different elements of a Byzantine church. Byzantine churches from the 6th to the 10th century developed from Roman architecture into a distinctive style centered on creating a sacred heavenly experience. They favored a centralized or a crossing square plan, topped with a large dome, as we can see here, the blue one, the green one, symbolizing the cosmos, right? Supported by pendatives or squinches that allowed a round dome on a square base. You can see these elements on the image. The layout moved worshippers from the narthex, which is the entrance of the church, through the naos to the sanctuary. These are all elements that you can find on the plan of the church. So the narthex is the specific name of the entrance of the church. The naos, it's exactly the nave, the Roman nave. And the sanctuary is actually the Roman apse, symbolizing a spiritual journey from earth to heaven. Light played a key role with windows around the dome's base, creating the illusion of it floating, while interiors were richly decorated, as we can see here. Gold mosaics and icons guided the eye upwards. So from the base, from the earth plan to up the godly and the highly spiritual world. The exteriors, meanwhile, were very plain, emphasizing the contrast between earthly simplicity and interior divine splendor. We can see here, it doesn't even seem the same architecture. The exterior is very simple and plain. The interior is godly, is light, it's very ornament full. So we can see in the first image the Hagia Sophia, which actually means Saint Sophia Church, which is the one we saw in the drawing, built in 537, designed by Anthemius and Isidore, which were the king and the queen of the empire, set the standard for the Byzantine architecture with its massive dome and blend of central and basilica plans. So the second one is San Vitale of the same year in Ravenna in Italy. We'll see it later. That features a central plan and a famous mosaic of Justinian, the king, and Theodora, the queen, highlighting imperial power. By the 10th centuries, Hosius Lucas in Greece, the third image, exemplified the refined crossing square plan, making the maturity of Middle Byzantine design. You guys have already heard 2 times the crossing square plan. It's a very simple, it's symmetrical cross plan. So it's like very like this. The Roman cross and the Byzantine cross are two different things, but they're very simple. Now we'll see the internal. As you can see, I was amazed by the difference between the inside, as you can see here, and the outside. There seems to be two completely different architecture. It's amazing. It seems that the interior is so much bigger than the exterior. So we'll take as an example the San Vitale in Ravenna in Italy. As we can see here, San Vitale in Ravenna was built in the 6th century and it exemplifies early Byzantine architecture in the West. Its centralized octagonal plan and dome and penditive, we can see here, reflect the Byzantine focus on verticality and symbolism. As you can see, it doesn't seem very big. It's not very big, but the inside, it's another thing. So the plain brick exterior contrasts with the richly decorated interior, filled with golden mosaics and light-filled space that evokes the divine. The mosaic emphasizes hierarchy, frontality, symbolism over realism, with flattened figures, elongated proportions, and golden backgrounds. This is very important. When we were in primary school, we can say all the Italian primary schools goes to Ravenna to see the mosaics. That day I couldn't go, so this is one things that I have on my want to do list. The most important mosaic is the one around the imperial couple Theodore and Justinian. So in this particular one, we can see the court of Empress Theodora. Is one of the most iconic example of Byzantine imperial imaginary. It shows the Empress Theodora, wife of the Emperor Justinian, standing in regal splendor, flanked by attendants, clergy, and court members. You have to imagine that mosaic, as we talked before in the last class, it's a small square of stones, color stones, of glass, of precious gems and stuff, all put together to create this similar-like painting. It's amazing, guys. If you think that every single square was cut by hand to fit perfectly to create this masterpiece. I suggest you guys that if you have some free time to do it, you can do it with paper, you can do it with whatever you want. It's very challenging and you can appreciate it even more. We can see here a focus on Theodore. She wears a richly adorned purple robe and jeweled crown, symbolizing imperial authority and divine rule. So Theodora portrayal reinforces the close connection between the church and the state and elevates her almost as a sacred status, both as a ruler and a participant in the divine order. We're now halfway our presentations. We'll do the Islamic one, the Islamic architecture, and then we have the Romanesque and the Gothic. After this Islamic architecture, I will take a break of 5 minutes and then we can start again later. So, Islamic architecture. I have to be honest, guys, I didn't study it before, so I had to research a bit because I'm not familiar with it. We'll start by saying that Islam emerged in Mecca in 610, and by the 8th century, the Islamic world stretched from Spain to India. So, very big. As we all know, Islam is one of the three main monotheist religion with Christianity, Islam, and Hebrew, the other one, the Hebrew. I will tell you later. So, okay, Islamic architecture reflects the Quran vision of paradise. The Quran is the book of uh, Islam, as the Bible is for Christianity. Islamic architecture reflects again the Quranic vision of paradise, emphasizing, as we can see here, geometry, calligraphy, floral imaginary and stuff, and abstraction, as the Quran does not permit to show, to depict people and animals. It's not permitted. So the Islamic golden rule and contact with the West. From the 8th to the 13th century, Islamic civilization thrived, especially in Andalus, in Spain, and in Baghdad. They preserved and expanded upon Greek science, math, and medicines. Europeans re-encountered this knowledge from Spain. You can see in the image from Spain, then go up on the Sicily, and then through the Crusades, leading to a slow, very slow intellectual revival. Islamic architecture spread via conquest and trade, adapting local traditions. It emphasized visual unity, symbolic geometry, and harmony with nature. Its aesthetic later influenced Gothic Europe, especially through Spain and Sicily, as we said before. I put here four of the main, most important mosque. I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation here. In Italian, we say mosque. I think it's mosque in English. Correct me if I'm wrong. As you can see here, they are not just from Turkey and the East world, but there are also in Granada, which is in Spain, or even in Cordoba, which is in Spain again. You have to imagine that Spain is like a bridge between two worlds because it connects the North Africa and the the Europe continent, and it's like a mix between cultures. We can see here the Mosque of Kairouan. I went there last year. Yes, no, 2 years ago. But I couldn't enter because I was a woman, because I am a woman, so I couldn't enter. But we'll use this as an example of how is the layout of a mosque. Uh, the Mosque of Kairouan is one of the most important of the Islamic world. The first one, as you can imagine, is in not in Jerusalem, but in the Mecca. That's where Muslims pray to, the direction they pray to the Mecca. And once they go to the Mecca, they can wear, the man can wear like the basic uh, hat, I call it hat, white, to show that they went there. They say that the Mosque of Kairouan in Egypt is like going to the Mecca for the people who cannot afford to go there. The Islamic medieval architecture is characterized by distinctive features like minarets, domes, muqarnas, vaultings, and arches, often adorned with intricate geometric and floral patterns, calligraphy, and vibrant mosaic tiles, as we can see here in the image. Often notable elements include large courtyards, as the one we can see. I will here in Granada. There are these large courtyards with greenery inside, and often even open hypostyle halls. The first one you can see in the image, and the mihrab, and a niche indicating the Qibla, the direction of the Mecca. Okay, guys, so we'll take a break of 5 minutes. I'll start again in at 12:55 because we're actually a little, I'm actually a little slow. We still have the Romanesque and the Gothic architecture. We'll see here, we'll be very on time. 5 minutes and I'll see you guys. Good, guys, we'll start again. We'll now talk about the Romanesque style. As Hong Kong already said, it started on the on an earlier period, but we'll focus more on this period right here. So Romanesque architecture expressed the medieval world view, a fortress of faith and order amidst a still unstable world. It laid the structural and artistic groundwork for the later, more light Gothic style. As Europe stabilized in the 11th century, pilgrimage and monasticism surged, leading to a massive church building. Romanesque architecture reviewed Roman structural forms with Christian purposes. Art focused on dictating symbolic storytelling for largely illiterate population. As we can see here in the image, the focus is still on Europe, is on France, Germany, Spain, England, and Italy. I will talk about the Italy context. Romanesque architecture across Europe shared key traits: rounded arches, thick walls, and massive forms, while reflecting regional styles. Durham Cathedral in England pioneered the ribbed vaults, anticipating Gothic design. Cluny Abbey in France showcased a monastic power and scale. Santiago de Compostela in Spain, a major pilgrimage site still today. I know people of my age that went there, featured wide naves and radiating chapels. In Germany, Romanesque churches emphasized fortress-like strength with heavy walls, tall towers, and symmetrical plans. But now let's focus more on the Italy side. This image highlights the architectural significance of Pisa and Florence, two Tuscan cities connected by ancient Roman roads that fostered cultural exchange. We can see here in the bottom one, Pisa Cathedral Complex, with its iconic Leaning Tower, is a prime example of Romanesque architecture, marked by rounded arches, marble decorations, and sculptural details. Meanwhile, nearby, Florence Cathedral reflects the shift towards Renaissance with Brunelleschi dome. It's very important. We'll see Brunelleschi in the next class about Renaissance, showcasing classical influence, bold innovation, and together these cities capture a key moment in the transition from medieval to early modern architecture in Italy. Now, I put only these four because I think they represent this general styles in the Romanesque Italy. So we see still the Pisa complex in this Duomo di Pisa. Duomo is like the main cathedral in a place, in a city. Just like in Milan, there's the Duomo di Milano, which is the Cathedral of Milan, which we'll see later as a Gothic style. Behind of the Duomo, you can see the Pisa Leaning Tower, sorry. Then in Florence, on the right, we can see San Miniato al Monte, showcases the elegance of Tuscan Romanesque with its geometric marble facade and harmonious proportions. This is exactly the main point of Italian Romanesque style: geometric marble facade and harmonious proportions. Down on the bottom left, we can see the Modena Cathedral, still Duomo di Modena. Began in 1099 by Lanfranco and sculptor Guglielmo, which are two important people and characters, but will not see them. Is celebrated for its sculptural reliefs of biblical scenes and stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Meanwhile, the Abbey of Sant'Antimo nestles in the Tuscan countryside, offers a serene example of Romanesque purity, with Carolingian and French touches evident in its tall bell and carved capitals. This is the inside. I think this is more similar from the outside to the inside, other than the one we saw before, the other style, the Byzantine style. The outside is quite complemented by the inside. Now we'll see the elements that characterize the style. Romanesque architecture from the 11th to the 12th century featured thick walls, rounded arches, barrel vaults, and small windows, creating a sturdy, dim interiors. Key elements included a monumental westwork, radiating chapels for pilgrims, and sculptural programs depicting the Last Judgment, saints, and biblical scenes to teach and inspire worshippers. Remember these elements because the Gothic style that we'll see now take them and make an evolution out of them. So now we'll talk on our main focus of today, the Gothic style. As I told you guys before, on the first class I was in France because I went there to study all the traces of the Second World War and the Gothic Paris. So I actually put in the drive a folder with all the images I took, and you can go see them if you want. You're not required to do that, but I think they're very useful. So Gothic architecture emerged in the mid-12th century in northern France, evolving from Romanesque. Coined as a later term during the Renaissance, Gothic became synonymous with verticality, light, and divine space. The movement reflected theological shift. Architecture now aimed to evoke heaven on earth through light and height. We'll focus more on the France Gothic architecture. So these are the global various styles. Gothic architecture actually began in France, around Paris, in the Abbey of Saint-Denis, and spread across Western Europe, notably England, Germany, Spain, and Italy. Centered in urban areas, Gothic cathedrals reflected the growing cities and civic pride. Unlike the Byzantine East or Islamic territories like Andalus, Gothic style remained a distinctly Western Christian development. Remember, Western Christian development, though some cultural exchanges occurred, especially in Spain, as I said before. As we can see here, you can already see the differences between Gothic style and Romanesque style. In the Italy side, we can see the Duomo of Milano. Here I put table with the most important cathedral and buildings. I want you guys to, if you are interested in this style, to go watch them. I think they explain very well the style. And I also want to mention this tapestry. I went to watch it. It's in Bayeux, a city of France. And it's actually of the century before, but I think it's necessary to imagine that the society um, didn't only focus on buildings, didn't only focus on art. You have to keep in mind, and you'll understand it a little bit more after watching the historical context that the society and the art was reserved only for the high people, the high society. In the Bayeux Tapestry, we can see it's actually a story, a, a real life story that explains the war between the Normandy, which is the north of France, and the England. And it shows a very aggressive war. Uh, as you can see in the in both of the images, on the bottom on the terrain, you can see dead bodies and stuff. Even thought the architecture is beautiful, is heavily, is godly like, and people professed religion. You have to remember that that was always part of that life. And people were very religious because that could be there anytime. Um, so you can imagine all the emotions you could feel when you enter a Gothic cathedral at that time um, when there was no electricity, when there was no light bulb, when there was not anything to make the cathedral more warm. You have to imagine the light shining through the windows and making all those awesome, amazing um, colored light. You have to imagine the candles that illuminated all the um, cathedral, but it wasn't enough to show it all, just to let the imagination run. So Gothic architecture, as I said before, began with the renovation of the Saint-Denis Abbey, where light symbolized the divine presence, a key concept known as lux nova. In Latin, it means lux light, nova new, quindi so new light. This led to structures, stained glass, and pointed arches that aimed to elevate the soul. Cathedrals became the symbol of urban pride, ecclesiastic power, founded by guilds, pilgrims, bishops, reflecting the rise of civic identity in medieval cities. We'll now see the different periods of the Gothic. So, Gothic architecture evolved through distinct phases, each reflecting shifts in structures and aesthetics. The early Gothic, 1140 to 1190, marked by Saint Denis, introduced pointed arches and ribbed vaults, but retained thick walls. By the High Gothic period, 1190 1250, seen in Chartres, Amiens, and Rennes, architects perfected the flying buttresses and vertical designs that flooded interiors with lux nova. The Rayonnant style, 1240-1350, prioritized ornament and stained glass, exemplified by the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, where walls nearly vanished into colored light. In the flamboyant phase, the last one, 1350, 1500, decoration became extreme, with flame-like tracery and elaborate facade, as seen in Rouen. I went there and I put some image is in the folder. Milan and Burgos cathedrals. Each phase built upon the last, uniting theological symbolism and with evolving urban and artistic ambitions. Gothic architecture was a medieval effort to create buildings that emphasize light, beauty, and open face, taking inspiration from Romanesque and Islamic forms. The construction required a large force work. A lot of people worked to build cathedrals. The masonry, which is the art of working the stone, required skilled workers. Um, the uh, mm, the Gothic, the cathedral work included mason, carpenters, engineers, and master craftsmen. This complex process not only provided work with apprentices and laborers, but also boosted the local economy, making cathedral building a major social and economic enterprise. As we said before, Gothic cathedrals were grand symbols of faith, urban pride, defined by pointed arches, ribbed vaults, flying buttresses, and stained glass. We'll now see a lot more in details the different elements. We can see here the pointed arches in the first image, the ribbed vaults in the second, the flying buttresses in the third, and the stained glass. They were all symbolic elements. So let's now see the pointed arch. As we can see in the images, they already existed in Islamic architecture and they were encountered in Spain, Sicily, and Syria, and were restudied and adapted to for the Romanesque arch and were then later used for decorative use. This is the flying buttresses. Um, um, Hong Kong and Everly already talked about this, so I don't think we need another explanation. But just know that there are a lot of local changes. The aim remained the same. You can recognize a Gothic architecture, a Gothic building, just by looking for this. The ribbed vault, I think it's my most liked elements of a Gothic cathedral. When I was a kid, and every Sunday we went to church, I was very, very tired. I wouldn't listen to I wouldn't listen. So I would just look around, and it's amazing how the ceiling is a piece of art. You can see here, I think it's very naturalistic. I think it mimics almost like a flower, a plant or something. Personally, this is my favorite one, and it's not just for beauty that they used this method, but it was used because it could distribute the wave around this particular structure and make it a lot more easy for all the building to reduce the pressure. Another thing that's beautiful are the stained glass windows that I think you guys have seen. I think the most amazing work piece of art is the Sainte Chapelle, which Hong Kong showed before. It's on the bottom right. I went there and it's amazing. All the windows are made like this. If you guys have the chance, you should do a research and in the future go to see it yourself. You cannot, I cannot explain the emotion you can feel inside the Sainte Chapelle. The last one I want to mention are the special interiors and the gargoyles. You'll see the gargoyles in a lot of medieval like movies. I've put some recommendation for you guys, and I think these gargoyles are very funny. And they actually are not they are not very practical. They are more spiritual and decorative purposes. But they make it a lot more funny to search for them. So we finished, guys. Thank you for listening to me. For the next class, as every class, you have the third assignment. You can choose whatever you like. And the next topic is the Renaissance. So we talk about the medieval world that was very complex. You will understand it even more later after the historical context video that I'll send you. It's far from the Dark Age, from Charlemagne to cathedrals, from feudal lords to the Black Death. It was a millennium of change. But later on, the Europe world saw the light with the Renaissance. I think it's my most favorite period of Europe. So I'm so excited to prepare the class. I hope you guys are excited as much as me. And yeah, this is it. I will send you the link for the historical context. And thank you so much for being here. You did a good job, everybody, for the presentation. So uh, yeah, Caroline, if you have something, okay,
No, I got it wrong.
okay, okay, guys, thank you so much. So I think for you is like 6 p.m., if not later. Thank you so much. Good evening and see you next week.
Thank you, Sophie.
Bye
See
bye.
you.